Market failure can be defined as a market imperfection which produces a suboptimal allocation of scarce resources, which is not as efficient as it might otherwise have been. It therefore occurs when there is an inefficient allocation of resources in a market economy. Let's look at some of the sources or reasons for market failure. We have discussed public goods in a discussion in AS economics, but what exactly is public goods? We say public goods are non-rival, non-excludable goods, and because of that, they result in what we call a free rider problem. Non-rider means consumption by one person will not leave less for another, and non-excludable means it is not easy to exclude those who pay versus those who do not pay. Because of non-excludability, we are unable to exclude the payers from non-payers, and as a result of that, there will be a free rider problem. In other words, in this market economy will not be able to charge a price for these goods, and therefore there is no price for these goods. And because of no price, there will be no provision of these goods by the private sector because there is no profit that is attached to them. A good example of public good is street light, which is non-rival because once you provide street light is available for everyone, more consumption by one party will not leave less for another. It's also non-excludable because I cannot exclude those who pay versus those who do not pay for the street light. And as a result of that, there is no price for this good, and because of the free rider problem, the government will then need to provide this good through its own resources. The second kind of market failure we'd like to discuss is called the merit and demerit goods. Free market can lead to over provision of demerit goods like cigarettes, alcohol, and under provision of merit goods like education and health. As a result, we say the allocation of resources are not optimal when it comes to both the merit and demerit goods. Now, merit and demerit goods have two important features that lead to market failure. First, they have large externalities associated with them. In the case of merit goods, there is positive externality. In the case of demerit goods, there is negative externality. But the second feature which makes them unique is the fact that there is a lack of information about the benefits or harm of these goods as they happen in the long run. So when you look at merit goods, the benefit may happen in the long run, and therefore you may not know the true benefit of it, or you may not be able to assess the true benefit of it. While it comes to demerit goods, the harm of these goods also happen in the long run, and as a result of lack of information, there is a decision making that results in suboptimal demand for these goods by consumers. The third kind of market failure we like to discuss is imperfect information. For markets to work properly, there needs to be perfect and symmetric information, which means consumers and producers have the same level of knowledge about the product and they know everything there is to know about them. In many cases, however, information may be asymmetric, which means producers know more than consumers, or incomplete or imperfect, which means that something is not known to consumers. In these situations, we have a market failure. A good example of this could be in the private healthcare market. Doctors know more than the patients about healthcare and treatments, which means that they have more information, means asymmetric information in this case. There is an incentive, therefore, for the doctors to prescribe more expensive treatment that is necessary in order to increase their profits. And this results in what we call an inefficient allocation of resources because something which is not needed is being consumed by the consumer. Many consumers also in the healthcare market take out insurance to help pay for treatment. Now this, however, can lead to what we call a problem, which is moral hazard, where the consumer may take more risk and therefore require more treatment because now they are insured. Again, this is a consequence of asymmetric information in the market where consumers know more than the insurer about their intended future actions. In many markets such as tobacco or alcohol and even pension market, we find that provider of these goods and services often withhold information deliberately from consumers. For example, many tobacco companies knew of the link between tobacco and lung cancer before consumers were aware of it, and despite that, they continued to advertise tobacco as being healthy and sociable, leading to overconsumption and
high demand for tobacco and therefore a market failure. Another market failure to consider is externalities. When you look at externalities, externalities are cost and benefit which can affect third parties and are sometimes referred to as spillover effects. They can be positive externalities or negative externalities, where positive externalities can result in under provision of the good, while negative externalities can result in over provision of the good. Now, we will soon see that when you look at externalities, externalities can happen at both production and consumption side. So you can have positive and negative production externalities as well as positive and negative consumption externalities. A good example of a production externality which is positive could be plant nursery, where the plant nursery, when you look at the business, is actually selling plants but at the same time is creating oxygen in the environment. When you look at a positive consumption externality, that could be a merit good like education, which can result in not only you to benefit but also the society to benefit because of the consumption of it. On the other hand, when we look at negative production externality, pollution can be a good example, where you are, for example, producing a good and polluting the environment at the same time. When you look at the negative consumption externality, demerit goods like cigarettes can come to our mind, which can affect not only the individual who consume it but also the society in terms of higher healthcare bills and lower productivity and so on. Whenever markets are imperfect, that also result in a sort of market failure, because let's say there is a monopoly in a market, then that monopoly can charge a higher price and produce lower quantity, and that can result in deadweight losses, and those deadweight losses can result in what we call under provision of the good and a product sold for a higher than perfectly competitive price. Now, what also results through this is that we call that situation to be allocatively inefficient, because now the price is greater than the marginal cost versus price equal to marginal cost. So let's review this again in terms of a diagram, because we did discuss this when we were doing monopoly power and how monopoly can result in deadweight losses. When we look at monopoly, monopoly will be charging a price where MC equals to MR. That will be the case where we will be producing at QM, and the price will come from the demand curve. It will be PM. Now, if the same market was under perfect competition, we know this MC is also supply under perfect competition. Now, where demand meets supply, the perfect competition will set a price of, for example, PC, and the quantity will be QC. As you can see from the diagram, not only the monopoly is charging a higher price, but also producing a lower quantity. In terms of deadweight loss, we can first look at the consumer surplus and producer surplus. Let's label these regions as 1, and this as 2, 3, 4, and let's say this region as 5. Now, when you look at perfect competition produces at price PC and quantity QC, which means consumer surplus will be area under the demand curve, which means all this area under the demand curve above the price. Consumer surplus will be area 1 plus 2 plus 3, and producer surplus will be 4 plus 5. On the other hand, when you look at monopoly produces at the point where price is PM and the quantity is QM, and the consumer surplus will be area 1, producer surplus will be area 2 plus 5, which means the deadweight loss will be equal to area 3 plus 4. Now, this means that when the price is equal to MC, we are allocatively efficient, because monopoly produces where MC equals to MR. In other words, where price is greater than MR, you are looking at a deadweight loss equal to area 3 plus 4. So the market power or monopoly can result in deadweight losses equal to area 3 plus 4. Another market failure that can result in a market economy could be price instability. Now, price acts as a signal in a market economy, and it sometimes has a role of an invisible hand responsible for the allocation and reallocation of resources in an economy. However, in some situations, there can be a great deal of price instability in the market economy, where prices can change very rapidly in a relatively short period of time. This can, for example, happen in agricultural market where the demand and supply elasticities are so low that any fluctuation in the supply can result in a large fluctuation in prices. One more market failure we would like to discuss is the inequality in the distribution of income and wealth. What is seen in a market economy is that there could be unequal distribution of income and wealth, and this will have the effect of giving some people more influence than others in the economy. Now, this influence also means that people who have more resources will be more sovereign than the ones that have less resources. So, inequality that results from the market forces of demand and supply can be undesirable and can lead to social unrest.